Hi, everybody. My apologies for being a couple of moments late. I want to acknowledge that we're gathered here on Treaty 6 territory, as well as recognize the Métis people of Alberta who share a deep connection with this land. For 2 years, the UCP government has ignored the growing need for new schools, especially in Calgary, and failed to provide everyone in Alberta's largest city with the space that they need. Today's announcement still does not adequately address the critical space crunch in a city where many classrooms are so crowded, some students have their desks in the hallway. Or they have a 45-minute commute each way to get to school because there isn't one in their community. 2 new schools over 3 years for Calgary. It's just not enough. And even those 2 schools are now at least 2 years behind thanks to the UCP. I'm also very disappointed that Edmonton Public was shut out of funding for new schools, despite having one of the fastest growing student populations in our province. And again today, nothing for Lethbridge, nothing for St. Albert. I simply don't believe Minister LaGrange when she says that her decisions weren't motivated by UCP politics. And beyond capital spending, the reality is that buildings don't educate students, teachers do. The UCP's budget shows that there are almost 1,000 fewer teachers in Alberta since Rachel Notley was the Premier. So let's be clear. The UCP is refusing to put enough teachers in schools that we already have. The trend is likely going to get worse in the coming year as the education budget doesn't increase above population growth or inflation. And a recent ATA survey suggests that as many as a third of Alberta's teachers are planning on either leaving the profession or the province in the coming year. We know that Alberta needs more schools and that we need more teachers. But we don't know exactly how many because the UCP is now, for the first time, refusing to disclose even projections for how many students will enter kindergarten to grade 12 classrooms this fall. This is yet another reason why Albertans can't trust the UCP. Thank you, and I'll take your questions.
Thank you. For those on the line, just a reminder to use the raise hand function if you're on Zoom and *9 if you're on the phone. Please state your name and outlet and raise if you have any questions. Okay, Dylan, your line is open.
Hi, sorry, this is a bit off topic. I'm not sure if it's best posed to you, Sarah, but I'm going to ask it since I got you. Also at the school funding today, we heard that there's some sort of plan coming down the pipeline for gas prices. I wanted to get your reaction to that. I know that not a lot of details today, but just sort of maybe what your party would like to see in that aspect.
First of all, I'd like to see the UCP do anything to actually address affordability, when what they've done over the last 3 years is make life so much more expensive for Alberta families. We're seeing increases to education property tax, increases to municipal tax rates to offset the significant cuts they've downloaded onto cities, towns, and counties across this province. We've seen utility rates, electricity specifically, skyrocket over the last few months because the UCP was so set on getting rid of the rate cap that we had in place under Rachel Notley's leadership. We've seen insurance costs go up for driving your vehicle, again, because they are so set on getting rid of any kind of rate caps or consumer protection. And then we saw last week a budget speech that talked about doing something about natural gas costs, but of course, when you drill into the budget, there's no money because they don't actually expect to use the fake smoke and mirrors policy that they pitched last week. So I guess we'll be waiting to see what's announced on Monday, but what I can say is over the last 3 years, the UCP has done all sorts of things to make life more expensive for ordinary families, and we can't trust them to actually put the priorities of regular Albertans and their pocketbooks ahead of their own personal interests in driving up costs for Alberta families and making profit margins for large, very profitable corporations even bigger. That's clearly their priority, not ordinary Albertans.
Do you have a follow-up, Dylan?
Sure, yeah. Along that same train of thought, I guess, is there any, preference to how to address rising gas costs from the NDP? Obviously, again, waiting for more details coming out next week.
Yeah, well, what I can tell you is some of the things that we did in the past to make things more affordable are including putting a rate increase cap in place for things like electricity and insurance. We actually funded municipalities fairly and consistently so that we wouldn't see the kinds of increases to costs that they saw. We also made sure that we indexed income, which of course Jason Kenney and the UCP have decided to get rid of to drive up personal income tax. So, they very clearly are trying to campaign to save their leader's job. They're about a year away from when the law says they need to have a provincial election, and clearly they're trying to fool Albertans and hope that they'll forget about all of the harm that they've inflicted over the last 3 years. So I guess we'll see what they have to say on Monday, but even the announcement last week was so clearly fake when it came to natural gas that it's hard to imagine that they'll do anything that's actually going to have real relief for ordinary Albertans, given their track record and how much they have downloaded onto ordinary families.
Thank you, and we'll do one more pass for questions. So just a reminder, if you're on Zoom, it's the raise hand function. If you're on the phone, it's *9. Seeing no more questions, that's the end of the press conference. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Tens of thousands of Albertans have already provided their idea for how we can build Alberta's future. You can too by going to albertasfuture.ca.